Good afternoon and hello, everybody. Welcome to Holistic Emails, Email and More, a Q&A with. I'm your host, Skip Federa, and in our last episode, we made you a rock star. Well, this month, we're going to make you Banksy. No, at the end of the session, you should not go out and start tagging buildings or doing graffiti of any kind, because frequently it is illegal. However, you should be able, by the end of the session, you should be able to brief in email design that gets people to turn their heads and smile and just bask in the perfection that you've created. In other words, your emails will get people to react. Now, while Banksy is an enigma, we aren't. This is all to say that this is your show. We have brought together this quite small panel of experts this month. We want to do a bit more of a fireside chat. We thought just a couple of experts, we could really dive into the details around design and compelling design. And this is your chance to ask us questions, right? So put your questions in the chat on the right-hand side of your screen, and we'll get going. We are unscripted, clearly already. I've shown that we're unrehearsed, but we are going to have a whole lot of fun as we go through this episode today. But before we get started, a couple of admin-y type things. Got to pay the bills, as it were. So, as I said, we've got a great show lined up for you today. We're going to cover why design is as persuasive as sorry. Very long day. It's very late here in London. We're going to cover why persuasive design is important, and it's more than just images and copy. We're going to talk about simple visual cues that you can use to showcase the key points in your email, using both overt and covert design tactics. We're going to talk about persuasive elements that work in every email environment, and that anybody that's ever worked in email knows that is one of the key challenges to life in email. And we're going to talk about trends in email design and how they affect an email's persuasive potential. Now, our goal is that by the end of this session, you're going to have a whole bunch of ideas on how to get more people to your landing page, and you're going to start testing. So if you would like to learn more about testing, pop over to the Holistic Email website, where you can see all the episodes that we've done to date from seasons 1, 2, and 3. And we've already done our testing episode in season 4. So go back to that. Now, I'd be remiss if I didn't thank our sponsors. This series has been brought to you by our platinum sponsor, RPE Origin, and our silver sponsor, Bloomreach. And now on to our panel. So from RPE Origin today, we have Evan Diaz. He's the Chief Creative Officer there. And with me, as always, is best-selling author and award-winning thought leader, Kath Pei from Holistic Email Marketing. Hey, both. How's everybody doing?
Good.
Very good.
Excellent. Now, our time always passes too quickly. So like I said, folks, this is your show. We're here to answer your questions, but we can't answer your questions if you don't get them into the Q&A section on the right-hand side of the screen. Yes, right-hand side. You notice how I look at my watch there to see which was left and right. So sad. So sad. So I was a guest on a podcast recently, and we got to talking about the early days of email and the challenges of selling email in those early days, way back around the turn of the millennium. And this was also around the time of the first .com crash or bubble, when the first .com bubble burst in the US. And as email marketers, we had to quickly pivot to sell. I work for an ESP, and we had to quickly pivot to sell to more mainstream brands if we were to avoid that bubble bursting for us as well. And the truth was, the traditional brands, they didn't get it. All of the customers that we had when I first started in email were all .coms, most of which went bust when the bubble burst. So now we're trying to talk to mainstream brands, household names, very, very traditional marketers, and they just didn't get it. So we actually did email a disservice and started describing it as direct mail only online. And the benefits in our minds were that with being online, we could track it. We could track everything. We knew everything about each message to each recipient, which is something that marketers had never had before. We knew who was sent the email, who received the email, who opened the email. Although, to be fair, we didn't know that, but we sold it like we did anyway. Who clicked on the email, and ultimately who went on to buy from that email. And we thought this should sell itself, right? Marketers should love this. Marketers have never had this information, and they should want it. And they didn't. And the biggest pushback we got, not publicly, the email that said, oh, we're not interested, was all very, we don't have a list, or it's not for us, or whatever. But you get these marketers out at a conference over a drink, and what you heard was, I don't want to know. I don't want my marketing tracked that well. I don't want you to have data that shows that I'm wrong, that shows that I don't know how to be a great marketer. Because right now, nobody can prove that. And I'm living large. And I'm, okay. If they were hitting their targets, they were happy, right? And those were the days when everybody knew that half their marketing was wasted, and they just didn't care because they couldn't figure out which half it was. But we're not like that. Those days are gone. Today, we are measured on everything we produce. Everything we produce has to work. And if it doesn't work, we have to be able to very quickly pivot into something that does. Gone are the days when a great product shot and some copy got the job done. And that's what brings us to today's topic. So like I said, get your questions into the Q&A on the over there on the right-hand side. And I am going to kick off the questions with our two lovely guests, Kath and Evan. Could each of you, and Evan, we'll start with you, could you briefly share your perspective on why persuasive email design is so crucial in today's competitive digital landscape?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. If we're not persuading someone to do something, then why are we even sending the email? If they already have the information, then we don't need to send the email. If they already want to do the thing that we want them to do, we don't need to send the email. So persuading someone, changing their mind, or causing some action, or informing them, that's the entire point of the email. That's like saying, why should we want our billboard to be visible? Like that's the whole point of the billboard, right? Why should we want to be able to hear this song? That's the whole point. So having emails persuasive is ultimately the entire point of the email.
And it's really interesting.
I like that.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. And picking up on the billboard one too, right? So because as you were saying, Skip, about the, let's pretend that email is actually just direct mail. And so therefore let's just design it like it's direct mail as well. Yeah. And the thing is, though, is that we didn't do that. For some reason, we didn't do that. We didn't actually take all that knowledge, all that design knowledge about the persuasion and about humans and the design elements within email, or within email, yes, and actually apply them to the email. We decided to focus purely on aesthetics. And so often now, when you're talking about designing for email, it's just talking about designing to be on brand, to make it look pretty, to make it look nice, rather than to actually have it be effective. Of course, the end result is that they want conversions, absolutely, but they're not designing for conversions. They're designing more for the aesthetics. And that's where, there's a huge opportunity for many, many brands to actually make a change. And I'm not saying you don't design for aesthetics. That's why you have fantastic designers like Evan work on it, right? Because he's a designer and he knows about that aesthetics. He knows about being on brand and all the rest of it. But then you also need the persuasive elements within it to help with the conversions. And it's about getting that balance between that persuasion and the aesthetics. So I guess that's my answer.
Kath, that's funny. It's funny you say that, because as you were saying that, I was thinking, yeah, so I want people to click through on my email and they're going to go to a landing page and I've got 47 different tests going to optimize the conversion rate on my landing page. But the same email gets people there. I haven't done the exact same rigorous analysis in my email. And then that took me to another place. There's a well-known email conference that is co-located with a CRO conference. And even in the bar, those two groups of people don't meet, like don't commingle. It's like email people, CRO people, right? So it's funny that you say that at some point, I want all these things to happen, but I'm going to think of my email very differently. So you mentioned that Evan is a designer, and I also know that he's a coder, and we can get into the merits of hand coding email later. But Evan, what inspired you to specialize in email design? And how has your journey evolved for the last couple of years?
Yeah, so I started in design in general, and then web design, and that sort of dovetailed into email design. I sort of enjoy the restrictions around email. It's not, we largely still have to code like it's 1992. Like there's some progress, but most of the progress is like hacks. So you sort of feel like MacGyver, like figuring out how to make this thing do the thing that was never intended to do. So I find that to be enjoyable. It's such a niche thing, but at the same time, it is so incredibly valuable. It is like the channel leader, like across the board, forever and all time. And people keep rediscovering email and how valuable it is and how fantastic it is for everything and how it outperforms everything. So I find that to be really cool. We're not just designing billboards, everybody's seen billboards. We're doing things that are functional. Like you said, Skip, we can measure it, we can see what's working, we can test it, we can be sort of scientists as well. It's a really, really interesting industry to be in.
Well, you've also told us a lot about yourself there, because you went right in with the MacGyver reference. And when you said, we have to do it like it's 1992, I thought you were going to go with a Prince reference in 1999. So, we've learned a ton in just that little sentence
a little bit more
about Evan.
Yeah.
So I was going to bring in the fact that being a designer and a coder for email, Evan, is, I won't say it's a rare treat or it's a rare factor or anything like that, because I do know that we have one in-house too at Holistic, but it's not common. Let's just say it's not common, but it's hugely beneficial, because it means that you can be designing with the restrictions that you were referencing before in mind, so that you can get the best of both worlds, as opposed to working with a designer who doesn't know and understand the limitations of email. They'll design something amazing, and then the coder's left trying to actually create it and make it happen.
Yeah, absolutely. We will. So at Red Pill Origin, we will design many of our emails and code them. And sometimes we'll get designs from other agencies and code them, and we can immediately tell this was designed by someone who doesn't know how to code. Things will, sometimes just you move this thing down 1 pixel, and like all of a sudden, like it goes from like, this is easy to code, and this is like, well, this can't be coded. So we can immediately tell when something has been designed by someone who doesn't know how to code. And it is rarer than it should be, because we either have to change the design that may have been, through 12 rounds of revisions and through legal approval and all this. We might need to change the design, which can be very expensive, or we need to code this in such a way that it can be, or we have to code this in a way that's suboptimal. So we're going to be decreasing the conversions, or we're going to be changing all this beautiful text, all this stuff into images, and that's going to be hidden, or it's not going to work on mobile. So yes, like you said, Kat, having designers who can also code, or at least have a basic understanding of how email code works, is really, really important.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's not to take away from the coding aspect, but just understand. I think just having a basic understanding of the limitations of email and how email works, and paper is paper is paper. So, okay, my colors may pop on a different kind of paper, and I used to work next to direct mail department when I was in the agency world, and once got invited to a day-long lecture on paper, which was fascinating because I didn't have to worry about it. It was just interesting because, hey, I can be a geek too, Evan. It's not just you. But paper is paper is paper. So the design may look better or slightly worse depending on the paper it's on, but it's going to work on every piece of paper, right?
Yeah.
Whereas on email, first of all, you have to, does it work in email as a big construct? And then now does it work in Gmail and Outlook and Lotus Notes? And it never works in Lotus Notes. So let's forget about Lotus Notes.
It never works.
Oh, except you use Lotus Notes because IBM is one of your biggest clients. So you can't forget about Lotus Notes. So now we're going to have to design it so that it works to literally the lowest common denominator. And, you know, somebody in the creative department's gonna be like, well, why could we make it prettier? Well, because of the medium.
Yep. And then you throw in dark mode as well on top of all of that.
I have thrown in dark mode. And I'm not loving dark mode at the moment. This is clearly something I need to work on.
He is dark mode.
You're
I am dark mode.
exemplified.
I am dark mode. I'm the Batman. Well, okay, so we've touched on some things. Still haven't gotten any questions in the Q&A, but I think this will spark some. We're now going to try to look at some examples. So I've asked you both to shoot some examples over. I don't know whose examples are whose, so I'm just going to put it up there and somebody start talking. Okay, so we're going to go with the first one here. Examples. So this is from
okay. Yeah,
MX.
this was mine. Yeah, so this is an email that American Express actually sent to me, and it is a beautiful looking email. It's got all sorts of cool stuff. There's multiple calls to action, some pretty decent lifestyle photography. There's a whole lot going on. This email may have cost six figures. Can you go ahead? But let's take a look at what it looks like without images. I think we have another one of this one where the images are hidden. No, go. I think one more slide forward.
Hang on, let me just. I think it might be. Is it that one?
Yep.
That's it. So this is the American Express, the beautiful American Express email. It is filled with like a dozen or 2 dozen broken image links. So this is how it came when I first saw it. All of the time they spent making it look beautiful was basically wasted, at least for a substantial portion of their audience. They do have some alt text, but they should have spent a lot more time making it functional. So like having a persuasive email, persuasion first presumes that the thing functions. Like I can see it. Like if the lights on the billboard don't work at nighttime.
Or it degrades gracefully. It doesn't have to function the way you intended, but it still has to function to a degree.
Exactly. So if all of the important copy is image based, like, you know, what are we even doing? Why are we spending this much time putting this much effort into such a beautiful email if this is what we end up with?
So can I tell you my funny Amex story? I didn't know you were going to have an Amex example. I actually have an Amex design story. So years ago, I didn't work on the Amex account, but I was working for the agency that had the Amex account. And you're not wrong about this email potentially costing six figures. It was they actually flew a creative team, an art director, and a photographer, and the client went out to India to get a shot for an email. Okay. And it was, I mean, you can picture the shot. It's early morning. The dappled sunlight is coming through the forest. There's a mist coming off the forest floor, and just coming out of the mist is, clearly the Amex customer sitting on top of an elephant doing this elephant tour in India, trip of a lifetime, amazing thing, right? And they did have, alt text on the image, and it just said, "Picture of guy on elephant." So I used to use that as an example of don't let your developer write your alt text. Make sure you get a copywriter to do it. But I mean, they do put a lot of times money.
It is.
because that's another opportunity to be persuasive within the copywriting, right? So,
Yep.
and it doesn't actually have to be descriptive even. It can just be persuasive. But, Evan, I am shocked at how often, being that where we are in 2023, I've just done an audit of 5 major retail brands, and they all do the emails still just created out of images. So, and it's heartbreaking because, I mean, the thing is that if you, and I think retailers use this a lot, they leverage the brand, and the people, and sort of people go, oh yeah, well, I don't normally have my images downloaded, but I know this brand, I like this brand, I'm going to download it for this brand. And I think they rely upon that. But at the same time, you need to ask yourself, do you actually want them to have to download the images? That's one more step. That's one more click that they don't need to do. Would you, if they only had one click in them, what would you prefer them to actually be clicking on the bulletproof call to actions that are popping
Yep.
out, even in the image, blocked email,
Yep.
and going through the landing page? It's things like that.
Well,
That's a great way to put it. If they only have one click in them, do you want it to be display images, or do you want it to be like go to my landing page?
Yeah.
I think the caveat there, though, and I appreciate this is a different session, but if they've genuinely tested it and tested it well, and has seen a lift, right? Then they are being as persuasive as they can be. But I think too often people just do it and they don't see that lift, or they don't know, they haven't tested it, so they don't know that they're leaving, as you say, Evan, clicks on the table because the click is, oh, show me the images. The image wasn't that good. I didn't want to show that. I turned the slides off because we're gonna try something on the fly here. So Lewis has asked, can we give an example of the alt text for the elephant image? So I'll go first. And I'll let you guys see if you can, add to it or whatever. But Lewis, I think, very much use all the space that you have and tell the story. The alt text is for people who can't see the image, right? Whether it's turned off or they have a visual impairment and a screen reader is reading it to them. So tell the story. What is in the image? It drives me nuts when the alt text is logo. Whose logo? Give me your, at least put your company name in there. Don't just say logo, right? So for the elephant, I would go with something like, I don't know, I'm kind of going Rudyard Kipling on this one, but as the sun rose, Evan came through the jungle on the elephant. It was a trip of a lifetime, all made possible by membership. Membership has its privileges. American Express. Something like that.
Yeah, not bad.
Exactly. You could still reference, instead of, that says picture of a man, you can still do but picture yourself. You talk directly to the audience.
Oh, yeah. This is Evan, but this could be you.
Right. Yeah. On the back of, an elephant and blah, 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 with the breeze in it. Yeah, exactly. With alt text, depending on, so not all readers or all email clients will show it, so which is problematic. But again, it just depends on who your main audience is. So if it's Gmail, go for it, definitely. But you can't write, a huge big novel in an alt text.
Yeah. We don't want the screen reader for 10 minutes describing this image, but neither does it have to be like, I wonder when you get to the email. It also doesn't have to be like super literal, like guy on elephant. It could be like adventure of a lifetime.
Exactly.
Like something like that, something that is evocative. So like if I'm blind and I'm using a screen reader, do I know what a guy riding on an elephant looks like? Maybe not. But can I imagine what the adventure of a lifetime would be? And it might look different in that image, but that's the feeling that we're trying to get across. So going for the feeling rather than the literal, person on animal. Okay.
And you get the same thing with different topic, but get the same thing with closed captions. I was watching something the other day, and I've got an 18-year-old, which means captions are on every device in our house. I do not know why. My 18-year-old hears just fine, but apparently it's a thing. So, we were watching some show, and it said ethereal music. That's almost too descriptive, right? Because if you had a hearing impairment later in life, you might know what ethereal music is. If you've had a hearing impairment since birth, what is that? That's just, okay, it's not rock music. I don't know what rock music is either, except I can feel that, and I can't feel this, so it must be quiet. I'm going to assume ethereal means quiet in this case. Anyway, we've got a couple of questions coming in, and we will get to those. I want to get back to the examples as well. Let's go to the next example, and then maybe we'll take a question, because I think they will tie together. So this is the Delta.
Yeah. Yeah, and this one was very similar. Beautiful looking image. But if you go to the next one, basically everything just collapses, and there's nothing left of this email. That's the entire email. And those links are like at the bottom of the bottom of the email, so they're not even in there. So all of this time and money is spent making this beautiful email, and just with a few small tweaks, you can still have the same beautiful email, but it would just work for more people in more different situations, and they would see their rates tick up. And it's not going to cost more. We just have to be more thoughtful about how we do it.
Yeah.
Okay. And just so I'm clear, so this is the email with images on. Is this email with images off?
That is it with images off. Yep. That's it.
Well, it could be worse. I don't know if that's helpful.
It could be worse. Yeah.
All right. And then we've already seen the Amex one. So let's go to the next example.
And then this is the last one that I have. So this is an example of the same email with images on and off. So you can tell what the offer is. You can tell, you can basically see everything. The images are a nice sprinkle on top, right? They're not the entree. The entree is the information, the offer, the copy, everything that surrounds it. But this email looks basically the same with images on or off. This is going to help with ADA compliance. It's going to help with a lot of different things. It's going to help with mobile responsiveness. If everything is image-based, either the text is going to be too big on desktop or it's going to be too small on mobile. So images, they're great, but they're a lazy way to create an entire email. So this is an example of what it could look like.
Yeah. So, and this email is readable, is actionable, can be persuasive, with images off. Like you said, the images are literally the icing on the cake in this one, which is, it's nice to have, but it's not an essential part. And yeah.
I don't know if we're going to get into later anything about how, images can help direct your eye and help you move through the email. But that was my takeaway from this one was with images off, it's fine. And you can use it and you can act on it and you know what they're trying to talk about. But it's just so much better with the images on. And the images don't really bring anything to it other than they help direct the eye, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm captured by the image of the woman and I'm guessing her daughter. The daughter's arms direct me right to the first call to action button, right?
Yep.
Exactly.
And I'm like, I don't know what this is about. Right below that, boom. Here's what we're talking about. Another call to action button. So, and I think this answers.
Yep.
We got another question from Lewis, which is about what about all those beautiful newsletters, or what about all those newsletters which are all beautiful images with text on them? I think we've covered that. So, yep, great. And sometimes you can't get away around that. Actually, let me ask this question. I'm going to hijack Lewis's question. Sorry, Lewis. But I think we kind of answered it already. What if my brand font is not a web safe font and the only way I can get it to render consistently and properly is in an image? How do I work around that?
So if it is important brand font, go ahead and save that font as an image, but have that be the exception rather than the rule. But where that font is, add the alt text, and you can even style the alt text to look similar. So even if image is off, if it is a white font on a blue background, you can style the alt text to be relatively, you could get like 70% of the way there. So even with images off, you can still see the text, and it's going to look pretty close to what you want.
That's a great designer answer. Can I give the non-brand marketer answer, which is the only person that's going to notice is the brand person at your company. And
also that, yeah.
That's when you go to them and you say, look, the font that you picked doesn't work on the web, doesn't work in email, doesn't work in PowerPoint. Pick a different font. Hopefully they're not a lot more senior than you, or you could lose your job.
And that's when you end up finding out whether your brand is actually valuing aesthetics over conversions. And that's when you actually have to do a side-by-side test. And so that they can understand, you know what, this actually is going to be costing us in revenue because we're losing out because of it. So
yeah,
it can be done.
Okay, definitely want to get to Graham's question. Hopefully the next example will help us get there. Okay, so this is deposit photos.
Yeah, so this one here is about using quite a few elements of persuasion, right? So visual persuasion. So there's, there's persuasion that you can be using within copywriting, of course, and the idea is to use both together in conjunction. But you can also be, as you were saying, Skip, to be using those design elements. So that image with the lady and her child and the arm pointing towards the call to action, a perfect example of a visual cue. And we actually look to that. We look to people, we look to their faces, we look to their eyes, we look to where their fingers are pointing and all the rest of it. And we actually, even though we're not necessarily overtly going or consciously thinking, where is she pointing at? Our eyes are drawn there, right? And that's what this one here is doing. Very, very subtle though. The colors, the patterns on the right-hand side are actually faces, right? And so, and we are drawn to faces. What are you doing, Skip?
I'm trying to see the faces.
You can't see
the faces. It takes a while. There's faces.
Oh my goodness. Anyhow, so they're very artistic faces.
Oh yeah, okay. Yeah, I get it. So like this is like an ear and hair and okay, I got it. Yeah, I'm with you. Little necklace. Got it. And it's one of those things, and once you see it, you see it. But I was like, I really thought you'd lost it there for a minute, Kath.
And so it's all pointing towards the message in the center, right? And it's using something else which is called the anchor effect, and anchoring is basically how that works. And I'll tell you where it is. So it says get 100 images.
Sorry, Kath.
For just $80, right? And they've got a price there, $299 scratched out. And so what they've gone and done by having that scratched out number, they have set the anchor. They have set the value of the product there. And then what they're doing now is actually, do you know what? It's worth this much, but it's cheaper. So it's a very common tactic. It's a very effective tactic. One of those other ones that we saw, I think.
It's the Delta one.
Right. Yes,
according to Janet, it's the Delta one.
That one there. So, and you notice that they're doing it at the beginning because, again, the anchor effect needs to have it at the beginning because that's where it's setting that anchor. Right. Mm-hmm. And then it's also using what's called a von Restorff effect. And so the von Restorff effect, see how there is no other red in this image other than the call to action. It pops. You have no doubt that is where you are meant to be, clicking. So it's very, very simple, very, very effective. It can also be designed with images blocked. It won't be as persuasive, but you can certainly get a lot of it together there using alt text as well. And do you want to go to the next one? And also, it's just kind of like framed the message. Yeah.
Actually,
so it's really to it.
Before we go to the next one, and I would like to see this one with images off, but before we go to the next one, you could actually do a lot of the same effect with the faces on the side, just by putting in a table behind it and coloring in the cells in a different way. I mean, you have to a lot of cells, but you could almost make like a block art kind of do this very similar thing. So if the images are switched off, it doesn't look terribly different. It would be a lot of work, but it might be worth it. And here's the last one.
So this one, I included this one because it's really, really simple, but it's incredibly effective. So first of all, you've got the big, crowd pleasers, and then you'll see that it goes down into an inverted pyramid. And what it's doing is it's telling us, it gets our attention, crowd pleasers right there. And we can see some nice imagery. So that's where we're focused. And then our eyes are drawn down to the copy and drawn down to the very bottom there where the call to action is. So it's actually, this is design, persuasion architecture, a very, very brief little, or a short example of showing how it works. So design or persuasion architecture is exactly what you were talking about before, Skip. You're using imagery, you're using design, you're using elements, you're using all these other, factors. And this is called a cognitive ease also, because you're really, you've got the reader in mind and you're trying to make it as easy for them to actually just absorb this information and then action it accordingly. Yeah, so because we can be overwhelmed. Certainly on the web, we can be overwhelmed if there's too much activity, too much color, too much, too many choices.
That's in your inbox. There's already too much stuff in your inbox, right? So we're probably starting overwhelmed. And Evan, I'd like to hear your thoughts on this. My two quick ones.
Yeah,
are
okay.
Go ahead. You go first. No, you go first. You're the professional. I was going to give you the amateurs.
Yes, something that wasn't mentioned yet. The little brown bar at the top. That is almost certainly going to be the pre-header text, unless something else was coded for it. So having 15% off your first purchase, that is a fantastic pre-header text. You don't necessarily want them to read it a second time once they've opened up the email, since I already know this is what this email is about. But I can highlight and copy and paste that welcome 15 because it's just plain text. That's a nice little touch as well.
And actually, you know what, that brings us on to another point, which is a little bit of a sore point with me. And that's the invisible pre-headers. Yes. Right.
Oh, here we go.
There is this
buckle up, everybody.
I'm not going to have one of my rants. But there is this trend where, they have gone and put this invisible pre-header so we can be seen within, the Gmail snippets and everything. But, and maybe it's what's caught you. Or maybe it is, here's the code or something like that, or here's the offer. And you're going, was it 10%? Was it 5%? I can't remember now. And you're looking for that and you can't find it in the email because it's been designed to be invisible and only be shown in the actual pre-header area rather than in the
I think it's worse.
Email.
I think it's worse than that. I think it's worse than that because I see that in my inbox and I open up the email and I'm expecting that to be the first thing I see.
Right.
As a punter. Right. And all of a sudden it's not there. Now,
yes.
So does that mean that I didn't get the offer? Right. Did I lose the offer? Is it a bait and switch? I think
are they deceptive? Yes.
Let's rant. Let's rant about this. No, I'm just kidding. I've got, so as the marketer who pays for this kind of stuff, I've got two thoughts about this. The first one is, they took the inverted pyramid or the triangle design really to the nth degree by also making the copy slightly. So my question is, how many times, and maybe Janet could weigh in on this if she with her thoughts, how many times do they have to rewrite it to get it to look like that? Right? How many times do they go back to the copywriter and be like, cut 2 words. It's not making a nice triangle. It's got to, cut a couple words. The other thought I had is great image, but the image is clearly not for the email. It's a image for something else. Because going back to what we were talking about having, visual cues draw your eye, the spoons are pointing the wrong way for me. The spoons aren't directing you into the text. They're probably in the product shot on the website, directing you to the buy now button, right? So that's a small thing, but could mean a lot when you're thinking about design.
Yeah.
Do you have images that work in email, not just on the web?
I definitely think in this case, it wouldn't have had a major effect, but I have seen so many retail examples where the model is actually looking. So the call to action, say she's looking this direction, the call to action is behind her. So they're actually directing us to look away from the email and miss out. Whereas if they just flipped her around, she'd be looking towards the call to action. She'd be looking towards the persuasive copy. Little things can happen, and it's just a matter of actually mindfully, sort of identifying what do we want to do here. Do we want her looking up? Do we want her looking down at the call to action? Do we want her looking at the headline? Maybe we want her looking at the actual offer, the code, and get the imagery accordingly.
Or maybe we want the model looking out to get the person to pause, just that little beat. Just get that little breath and be like, okay, now I'm in the moment. What is this email about? Get me to stop. So I'm going to try something new. Never tried this before. Share slides and throw a question up on stage. But this is a question from Graham, and this email is a great way to a great place to talk about this. Oh, that's how it works. Okay, very cool. I'll stop sharing now. But is there a preferred image size or a ratio, or that last email? The image took up a lot of space in that design. So what are your thoughts around that kind of balance?
Yes, there is. So emails are generally around 600 pixels wide on desktop. We will save our images out at 2x for Retina display. It'll scale down. It looks extra crisp on like mobile devices and desktop devices. So just technically, that is typically what we do. As far as ratio, we tend to recommend wider and shorter, because narrow and tall things, when it goes from desktop to mobile, it's going to take up the entire screen. There are things you can do to crop images. So it could be maybe this size on desktop, and then on mobile, it crops off the bottom half so you can do that kind of stuff. But if you ever have a skinny but tall image on desktop, you want to be very careful about mobile, because that's going to be like maybe a whole screen or 2 screens of scrolling, and you may not know that. So you definitely want to be aware of that. But 2x size for whatever it's displaying at, and then be careful about any things that are really tall.
Well, that brings us to not the next question I was going to ask, but an interesting question nonetheless, which I'll throw up for both of you. One of the major challenges is, every email client renders emails differently, and then you chuck in mobile as well, and now you've got different size phones, different makes of phones, different email clients on phones, different operating systems on phones. How do you manage it all? Like, I'm a marketer. I can't build for every eventuality. I just can't afford it. I don't have time, and I don't have the bandwidth. I don't have the people resource to do it. I don't have the cash resource to do it. So what's the best way forward?
So, well, in my opinion, it's build yourself a master template, and you need to put considerable resources, time, and effort into getting it right, checking on as many devices, email clients, etc., as possible. And then you can be using, say if you've got 20 modules within that master template, then you can go and pull out 3 modules, and doesn't mean that you don't test them. Of course, you will still render test them, but you will be assured that you're starting off at a good point, because you've already spent a lot of time and effort doing it. This will cut down a lot of the process in building the email, in QAing it, and all the rest of it. Doesn't mean you don't QA it, of course you do, but there's just the refinement process will be reduced significantly because you're using a master template, which has already gone through a very, very strict and comprehensive rendering, testing, and everything, and also with dark mode now included. So, but Evan, what are your thoughts?
Artsy dark mode.
If your designers are aware of the limitations of email, you are going to save yourselves a lot of headache, both in the QA process and testing and back and forth. So doing that first is really, really important. You're not going to design yourself into a corner that you have to figure out later. Oh, I didn't even know if this was even possible or not. If you're using things like background images, or fancy AMP script or something like that, make sure you have enough time before you have to deliver, before you do all of these kinds of things. So if you have enough time, you can be a little bit fancy. If you know you have a little bit of time, a little bit of budget, you might need to be a little bit more modest. And a lot of these extra bells and whistles don't move the bar that much. Most people really just need to focus on, hey, is this email functional? Are you giving me reasons not to click? Is it confusing? So like most agencies, most companies, even very, very large ones, they're still struggling with the very low hanging fruit.
Yeah. And anyone that's here and attending this particular session, I'd also recommend checking out the Email and More. We've got a few copywriting sessions as well. There's some absolute gold and gems within those, because copywriting obviously and design go hand in hand. And they can both help or hinder your conversions. So yeah.
Cool. I was going to try to. I got a message from our producer John. He sent me the images off version of the deposit photo, and I was going to try to get it on screen, and that just has technical disaster written all over it. So we'll put a link to that maybe in the chat or something for folks to see. Looks great. Basically, the sides are blue. Everything else is there. Yeah. Right. So, Kath, you've been teaching persuasion principles in email marketing for quite some time. You've written a book on it. You won an award for it, all kinds of things. Could you highlight a key principle or strategy that you find consistently effective in persuading email recipients to take action?
Yeah. So there's one, but I'm not going to recommend to use it, as in use it all the time. It's incredibly effective. So the way it works with we humans, how we work is we're driven by two main emotions. One is to avoid pain. The other one is to enjoy, life. And so you benefit, then loss, right? You've got those two there. Now, if you go and sort of interview anyone, and they'll say, oh, I'm always, I prefer to have a better time. I'm always going to go for the bright side. No, reality is that we hate pain, and we will do anything to avoid pain. And when I'm talking about pain, I'm not necessarily talking about physical pain. I'm talking about loss, right? So it could be, oh, I missed out on that sale. It could be, darn, I missed on that dress.
You haven't created like electroshock email where, you open it up and all of a sudden, bzzz.
That takes extra time to code.
Yeah, it does. And especially ESP.
So, and you see it all the time. So there are, that FOMO, it's very popular now. FOMO is one of the ones that works really, really well. The thing with any of these, the persuasion architecture, the using cognitive biases, the behavioral science, using the persuasion principles and everything, you need to understand that they could be used for good or for evil, right?
I was going to say that there's a fine line between persuasion and coercion.
Exactly. So you need to be doing it from the very, very, from the helpful marketing perspective. I want to help my customers to make a decision, right? Help them in making that decision. And that's what cognitive biases do. They basically help you to make a decision. And so what we need to do is stick with that. Don't use, I'm going to persuade them, I'm going to wrangle them into it, none of that applies when we're talking about legitimate persuasion marketing. What you really need to do is understand that these are incredibly powerful. They do tap into human nature. They do tap into our needs, our wants, and everything, and how we function. So you have to be very, very mindful of them. And at the same time, like things like when you're using loss aversion week after week after week after week, it's like that banner blindness. Remember banner blindness from years and years and years ago?
Oh, yeah.
It loses its potency. And we then go, yeah, but you're going to have the same offer next week. It's the same thing. It's like, yeah, and again, that kind of thing. So save
or worse,
it up.
you teach people to wait for the offer. And so what you're actually doing is you're leaving money on the table because you're giving somebody an offer that didn't need it.
Yeah. So this is why there are so many principles that you can be using and biases that you can be using, that you can be calling upon. And you might find that some work better for some segments of your audience, your first-time buyers, and for your loyal ones, and other ones work better for your loyal customers and your first time, and so on and so on. But loss aversion is incredibly powerful, as is scarcity, right? Another one that works really well, again, it's the wisdom of the crowds, it's the social proof. So these are three very, very common and popular principles that are used within email marketing. But again, you need to be expanding your repertoire. You need to be having a look at other ones that are out there, to be using other elements of persuasion, not just relying upon those three key ones that I see time and time and time again.
Well, and just like everything else, each technique is going to work on a subset of your population, and those three will work on maybe most, but you're still going to have a part of your population. Those three aren't going to work on. You're going to figure out what it is that gets them to engage and gets them to act. So, Evan, you're a designer, a creative director. What are the common mistakes or misconceptions maybe that non-designers make or bring when they're talking about email, and how can we avoid some of those pitfalls?
I think the biggest one is like, what can even be done in email? People don't know how locked down emails are a lot of times. But not only that, like people may start learning about, oh, we can do animations. Let's do a bunch of animations, not realizing that if you have an animation right next to some copy that you want your user to read, this is flashing and being distracting while someone's trying to read. So placement, like we can do animations. It can be helpful to draw people in, but we don't want to annoy or confuse or distract them. So if you're going to have this animation doing something, have it at the top so that when they scroll down to the copy, it's off the screen. Like it's not distracting them. So having animations that are either subtle or away from the copy and away from the calls to action that you want people to be clicking. So we sort of just need to learn to get out of our own way. Like let me click on the link. So the last email that we just looked at with the inverted pyramid, I would be interested to see if the hero image was linked to the same place that the button was. A lot of times only the button is linked, but a lot of people love clicking on images and they'll just think, oh, this email doesn't work, I'm gonna go back.
Right.
So
because the image is big and it's an easy target. It's like I can.
Yeah, it's easy to smack that with my thumb, right? If I'm on my phone, but I might not even scroll down to get to the button. So some people love clicking on text links. Some people love clicking on buttons. Some people love clicking on images. And let's give them all of the options. Have them all go into the same place if we need to. So just getting out of our way, letting the email function and do the thing that we need to do.
Yeah. And what you said about the animations and everything, absolutely true. And I've always said when teaching and talking with clients, basically, if your image doesn't support the goal of either that module or your email altogether, then it's going to detract from it. It's going to hinder it, because it might, as you said, it might take the focus and it might get them thinking somewhere else, or it's not serving the purpose that it's meant to serve. Don't use an image just for the sake of having an image. It needs to actually be supporting what the goal of that email is.
Yeah, if you want to, as you both said that, I had to chuckle because, as I've said here many times before, I've been doing email marketing and digital marketing since Yahoo was relevant. So I'm not going to put any up on the screen because I haven't previewed them and I don't know that they're appropriate. But just go to Google and type in late 90s website examples, and you'll get a whole bunch of examples of exactly what Evan's talking about, taken to a level that is almost unfathomable. So we are almost up on our time, which is very unfortunate. I guess in the couple of minutes that we have left, what is the final piece of advice you'd like to offer our audience regarding the path to mastering persuasive email design? What's coming? What should they be looking out for? What should they make sure they're doing now so they're not screwing it up? Kath, you want to start?
Sure. Think about your audience, right? Think about that helpful marketing. Think about why it is that they've signed up to your list, what it is that they want from you, why they would be opening up this email. Make sure you deliver it. And then make sure that you help them in their journey of decision making. And that is also with design, but also with copy, layout, all the rest of it. Just be very, very aware of, sort of designing for the customer as such and their needs. I always look at that, the initial sign up is a transaction between you and the customer. They've said, I want to receive your emails. No money's changed hands or anything like that. But what you have said to them is, yes, right? You need to make sure you deliver on it. And that's it. So therefore, you need to be designing with the customer in mind and why they've done it.
Apparently our time's up. Evan, how about you? Final thoughts?
Yeah, that's a good point, Kath. I've signed up for your emails. Don't make me regret it. Don't annoy me. Don't send me things I didn't want or didn't expect. It's sort of, emails is a lot of times going to be the first or one of the first impressions people have of your company. It's like going to a new doctor whose office plants are dead. Like what impression does that give? Why should I trust this bank with my money or this company to produce a functional product if you can't even send an email that works or that looks good? That is the front facing, the thing that your customers may be interacting with your brand the most. So make sure it's working, make sure it's functional, make sure it represents what you want it to represent, and it's not sending the wrong impression.
I think both of those are great ways to end. If I could just summarize even more, have respect for your recipient, have respect for your reader. They are giving their time to engage with your brand. I think you hit the nail on the head. Don't make them regret it. Make it worth their while. Make it so that they're not wasting their time. And that's a great place for us to end. That was brilliant. Thank you both very, very much. I wish I'd be happy to go on all afternoon. Folks, if you have any comments or thoughts, please stick them in the chat. We'd love to hear what you thought. Especially, Evan comes from RPE Origin. Talk about how great he was and how you're going to use RPE Origin for everything you do. That way we can get their sponsorship next year. And also mention, give Bloomreach a call and say how great this was and how you can hardly wait to start using them as well. Thanks, of course, to both of our great panelists, Evan and Kath. All the insight we got today was absolutely stupendous. I know I learned a lot. I hope you learned a lot as well. So join us next month on October 17th, and we'll be talking about the relationship between CX and retention. I'm not sure where I'm going to be coming from, but I understand Kath is going to be coming from New York. So Dallas this month, New York next month. Kath is like the world traveler. So join us next month when we'll have another great panel, another great discussion, and spend an hour learning a lot. Until then, thank you, everybody. Be safe and make good choices.